I'm Ryan Parker, 21, living in California with my stepfamily. My mom passed away when I was 12, and my dad remarried a woman named Karen, who had a daughter from her previous marriage, Ava, who was then 17. She became my stepsister. Now, 7 years later, Ava is 24. We both grew up in the same house, but always respected the line between siblings, even if we weren't blood related. She's smart, warm, and insanely beautiful. People often thought we were dating because of our closeness, but we just laughed it off. One weekend, our parents went out of town to attend a medical conference in New York. Ava and I were home alone for 2 nights. That Friday evening, a thunderstorm rolled through the city. The power flickered, and lightning painted the sky outside. We made popcorn, watched an old rom-com, and laughed like old friends. Around midnight, as the rain hammered the windows and thunder cracked, Ava suddenly turned to me. "Ryan," she said softly, almost unsure, "I don't feel like sleeping alone tonight. Would you mind if I stayed in your room?" I blinked. "Of course not. If it makes you feel safe, stay." She gave me a relieved smile and followed me into my room. We talked for hours about life, our childhood, the weird way our families blended. She told me things she never shared before, about her failed relationships, her fears, and her loneliness, despite having everything on the outside. I listened, and for the first time, I truly saw Ava not just as my stepsister, but as a woman with depth, pain, dreams, and maybe hidden affection. She lay beside me, pulling the blanket up to her chest, her shoulder brushing against mine. The electricity between us wasn't just from the storm. "I've always felt safest when I'm around you," she whispered. I turned toward her, my heart pounding. "Me too, Ava." There was a silence, a moment, and then she leaned closer, resting her head on my shoulder. My arm instinctively wrapped around her. It wasn't physical. It was emotional. It was comforting. It was connection. That night, we didn't sleep much. We talked, held hands under the blanket, shared quiet smiles, and somewhere between 2 and 4 a.m., I knew something had shifted forever between us. The next morning was warm, sunny, like the storm never happened. But something inside both of us had changed. We were closer, more aware, and then came the twist. Suspense ending. That afternoon, while cleaning the living room, I stumbled upon an envelope addressed to Ava, hidden behind the bookshelf. It was from her biological father, the one she thought abandoned her years ago. Curious, I handed it to her. Her hands trembled as she opened it. Inside was a DNA report. She looked at me, her eyes wide. "Ryan, this says you and I were not related at all. Dad never adopted you legally. And Karen, she wasn't even married to your dad. We're not family." I was speechless. Ava stepped closer, holding the paper in her hands. "All this time, we thought we were step-siblings, but we're not even that." I felt my heart race. That explained so much, the feelings we tried to suppress, the connection we never understood. She smiled slowly, her voice almost a whisper. "So, what does this mean for us?" I didn't answer. I didn't need to. I just held her hand, and we both knew that night wasn't wrong. It was fate. End note for video viewers. Sometimes the people meant for you come into your life in the most unexpected ways. Ava and I thought we were bound by family, but in the end, love had other plans. The days after Ava and I discovered the truth were full of emotional storms, even worse than the one outside that night. We weren't siblings. Not legally, not by blood. That fact opened a door neither of us expected, but stepping through it came with weight. Ava avoided me for 2 days after the DNA letter. We were in the same house, yet miles apart in silence. I respected her space, but every second without her felt heavy. On the third night, I found her sitting outside on the porch, legs pulled to her chest, staring at the stars. I sat beside her quietly. She finally whispered, "Ryan, all these years I thought I was unwanted. First by my real dad, then always being the stepsister in everyone's eyes. But that night with you, I felt loved. For the first time, completely. I took her hand. You are loved. You always were. By me. A single tear slid down her cheek. But we can't do this, she said softly. Not while we live under the same roof. Not until we know it's real, and not just loneliness. My heart twisted, but I nodded. Then let's figure it out. Together. 3 months later, the shocking truth. We agreed to keep our feelings private and give it time. Ava started therapy to heal from past wounds. I focused on work, saving up for my first apartment. Then one afternoon, while cleaning out the garage, I found a dusty storage box with old photos and legal papers. One caught my eye, a marriage certificate. I froze. It showed my dad and Ava's mom never legally married. But even more shocking, there was a letter addressed to Ava from her biological mother. Inside, the truth shattered me. Ava wasn't Karen's daughter by birth. Ava had been adopted as a baby, a private adoption never disclosed to her. Karen had raised her like her own, but never told her the truth, which meant Ava and I weren't related in any way, not even through our parents. I drove straight to her office, the letter in hand. She read it, eyes wide, hands trembling. So all this time, she whispered, we weren't siblings at all, not even step? I took her hand gently.
No.
We're two strangers who grew up under the same roof and fell in love. She looked at me, teary-eyed but smiling. Then what are we waiting for? Final scene. A year later, we moved into our own apartment. Ava went back to school to study counseling. I started a small design business. We still remembered that stormy night. Not as the night something wrong happened, but as the moment we found something real in a world full of confusion. And every time someone asked, how did you two meet? We just smiled. Because some love stories don't begin with strangers, they begin with family and end with truth. Viral ending hook for your video. We thought we were family, but fate told us we were something much more. Would you call this wrong or destiny?